Hey guys, Jay Rogers here with Server Side Up with an exciting update and demonstration of what we've been working on for the past 3 months. We have probably about 400 hours invested into this open source project called Spin. It's a collection of many things, but the approach that we're trying to take here is just use proven technologies and just make them simplified and more accessible for people to use on their own. And so Spin makes some pretty strong promises here. It's similar to Laravel Sail, but it's from development to production. We're going to provide you templates for zero downtime deployments. All your configurations are stored within your repository. We have GitHub Actions templates that will help you accomplish the zero downtime deployments. We're making sure that this runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. You can choose and run Spin on any host, so you can deploy out to any host as long as it's a Linux server. No system configurations required on a developer's part. We allow you to install Spin either on your system if you want, but you can also install it via Composer package or Node modules package. And that's very helpful because people can just quickly start using it. You just give them one command. Everything's built to be framework agnostic. We're also providing automated SSL with Let's Encrypt, and everything that we're publishing is open source on GitHub. An overview of how this works, just to give you a little bit better picture, is let's say we have developer A and developer B. The only thing they really need to do is have Docker installed on their computer. So that's where we can get the Mac, Windows, and Linux. Then Spin uses a collection of different things. So we're just simplifying the commands down. In local development, we'll be using Docker Compose. In production, we'll be using Docker Swarm. We also provide GitHub Actions templates to help get code deployed quickly in an automated way. And then the way that we're going to configure to give you the power for you to choose any host that you want, we're providing what's called an Ansible collection. And Ansible allows one machine to ensure another machine is configured in a certain way. The best thing is that we can deliver infrastructure almost like a composer package, which is pretty wild. And we can ensure that your server is going to always be in the state that we want it to be in. And this is very helpful because the only thing that you really need to know is how to configure a YAML file. We take care of all the Ansible stuff for you, and you can easily configure multiple users or certain settings that you want to change. We provide that whole YAML file for you, and then we take care of all the heavy lifting in the background. So just to give you an example on how this works, we're just going to go live with this. We're going to see how this works out. We're going to do a brand new Laravel project. We're going to just throw it on DigitalOcean. We're going to throw it on GitHub, and we're going to have GitHub Actions do our deployment for us. And let's just see how this rolls out. So let's take a look at my terminal. And I'm going to run a spin new Laravel, and then we'll just call it spin Laravel demo -app. And what this will do is this will use the server-side up PHP images, which are Docker images optimized for Laravel, to use Composer and install a brand new Laravel project. While it's doing that, we'll see that it's going to add the development dependency that we can see right here. So we're adding spin to the Composer JSON, so other users can just run bash vendor bin spin and get up and running without any system configuration. And then we're being asked to use the GitHub action templates, which I'm going to use. And I'm just going to do laravel.ssudemo.com, since I'm going to push this to an actual live website. And here's where we're adding all of our configuration files to the repository. So that gives you point in time history of everything. And then we have two sensitive files down here at the bottom, which we're going to use Ansible Vault to encrypt it. So I'm just going to press Y. Now, the cool thing about Spin is you are running Ansible locally, but we're running that through Docker as well. So you don't have to worry about installing any system dependencies. It's just going to download the small Docker image and run this container on your machine to configure this. So I'm just going to put in my password here to encrypt my files. And then this will configure my project where I'm now ready for what's called spin up, which is very similar to how Laravel Sail worked. So looking at these files, let's just take a look at what we have. Let's just initialize this Git repository in here. And we'll just do init, sure. And looking at the files that we have, we can do a spin up to get things started. And it's running Docker Compose. So there's a number of things going on. So there's a base file here that defines the traffic image, MariaDB image, PHP. We do some fancy things in here so that we can fix user permissions and make sure that somebody, you have developer A and developer B, and they have different user IDs, and we want to be able to set it to their users. So we're doing that through the Docker file itself, and everything's based off the server side up image. And then we have Docker Compose overrides, which we set even more settings here through the development environment. So what Spin's doing is it's actually reading from the Docker Compose, and then it's reading from this Docker Compose dev, which then gives us the configurations of we want laravel.dev.test. We have our PHP settings in here. This is where we're passing some build arguments to make sure that permissions are correct. And then we configure our local traffic instance. And then we're configuring where our MySQL database should be stored. And that's the cool thing about Spin is since everything's in the repository, including your data, we're not going to commit your database to it, but everything's within that folder. So when you go buy a new computer, the only thing you need to do is install the latest operating system updates, install Docker on that machine, drag this folder over, and then you can just run spin up on your machine and everything will be good to go. So if we look over here and just go to laravel.dev.test, you can see that I have a running local development environment. Now that's just development, but let's go further and let's get this thing into production. So if I look over here, I'm just going to create a brand new droplet. Let's take a look at what we have. Sure, San Francisco's fine. We want Ubuntu. Make sure that you're running the latest LTS. You don't want to be running the absolute edge version. And we're going to, sure, we'll drop this down to $7 a month. You'll be shocked on how efficient a properly structured Laravel app can run on one core and one CPU. And what we need out of this is we're going to just get an IP address out of this server, and then we'll take that IP address and we'll configure our domain and get that prepared for production launch. While that's going, let's take a look at our GitHub actions and what's going on here. So if we open this file up, we can see that this is going to run whenever there's a release on there. You can change this to on push and do certain branches and take these files and configure it in any way that you want. But I just want to give you a good place to get started. We're going to have to set some GitHub secrets in there as well. That'll be very important. And then we can see there's some configurations in here of, at least in this job of deploying to production, that we need to configure this laravel.ssudemo.com. So let's take a look at our DigitalOcean. We have an IP address and let's add that record. So we're going to do Laravel. Going to paste that in. Let's uncheck the proxy for this demo, but you can see that we're going to create a Laravel ssudemo.com and point it to this IP address and press save. Now, I probably want to do something for the server as well. So I'm just going to do my server. You can call your server whatever you want. I'm going to uncheck the proxy on there. We're going to press save. And now we have our DNS ready for everything. And looking at these files, we need to open these up. You can see these are encrypted. Let's just open up a new terminal window. And I'm going to do a spin vault edit.spin YAML. And it's prompting me for my password. It opens up in Sublime Text, so it's a lot easier to save and maintain. And we just give you some basic things to change your server contact. If you want to change your server port, we have what's called a deploy user. That's the user that GitHub Actions will be using to SSH in. So we have to configure a dedicated public-private key pair for SSH keys on that. And then we're going to have our system administrators as well, which I'll get added. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to copy this over and paste this in just because I didn't want you to watch me type everything in, but it's pretty straightforward. We're just configuring the username of J. We're going to put in a default password, which this is set up that one administrator will configure this, give everybody a password, and then once they sign in, they will be prompted to change that password. So that's really nice. And then we're just going to set the SSH key for each user, the public key for each user. And this is the cool part, is when I press save and I make that change, you can see over here, this is highlighted in yellow. This is now encrypted and updated in here. So this is using AES 256 encryption. It can be published online, and even in Ansible's documentation, they say that you can publish that into your repository. So we have that file saved, which is cool. Now let's come back and let's do our spin inventory INI. Let's put in our password. And this is where we have the file set up where it's a swarm cluster. So you could have what are called managers and workers. But rather than that, we're just going to focus on the 99% use case. We're just going to do a single node manager that will be able to handle our zero downtime deployments. So this is where I'm just going to come in. I think I called it myserver.ssudemo.com. We're just going to save that and close out of that. So now we have two files in here, and we have my SSH users configured in the spin YAML, and then we have the spin inventory where we want our servers to go. So now what I can do is just run a spin provision. And what this is going to do is this is going to run Ansible through a Docker container on your machine. It's going to go out and download what's called the spin Ansible collection. And this runs certain tasks and playbooks, it's called, which guarantee that your server will be set up the exact same way as everybody else's server. So it's asking me for my vault password. So let me type that in. If I could type it in correctly, there we go. And what's this is doing now is, okay, it's connecting over SSH. I've not connected to this server before on my machine. So it's asking, do you trust it? So we're going to say yes. And now this is connecting over SSH, and it's ensuring that every single setting that you see listed out on this is being set exactly in how we want it. And then if it's already set, it just highlights it in green that it's good to go. So this makes it very easy for us to repeat these hosts very quickly and very easily. So while that's going, this will take a few minutes. Let's look at our next steps. We have a brand new Laravel project, but we need a repository to actually push it up into. So I have it initialized, but I don't have a new remote yet. So let's go over here. We're going to do spin Laravel demo app is what I think I called it. Yeah, that's what I called it. So we're going to do that. Let's just make this public. You guys can take a look at it and check it out. And we're going to create this repository. So we have our repository. I have one local on my machine, but I need to add the remote. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's just drop over here and let's add that remote. Okay. And then I already have a main branch here. So what I can do is I can push these up, and let's switch over here. Let's refresh. All of my code is now pushed here. Actually, what I need to do is add configs. We'll sync those changes up, push those up. And now remember, our GitHub actions by default are configured to run on release. So we'll run the release when we're ready. But right now, let's look back at that that file. We need to ensure that these secrets are configured within the repository itself. So let's just go over here. I'm going to go to settings. Then I'm going to drop down to environments. I'm going to do new environment, and our default environment is just going to be called production. And then here's where I can scroll down and hit add secret. So let's do our deployment SSH key. I have one generated already, but we can do, I think I have it on my desktop. Let's do deployment key, and let's make that screen a little bit larger for you. And looking in here, you can see that I have a private key and a public key pair. So this one, we actually want the private key to exist. You can do some extra security on making sure that you can run your own GitHub runner, things like that. But we are going to do a deploy key, and we're going to just pipe that out into PB copy, which will put that on my clipboard, and we're going to paste that in there. Looking at what we need to do next is the SSH hostname, and that's where I believe I did myserver.ssudemo.com. I'm going to add that secret. DB root password, This is just a demonstration, so I'm just going to keep it simple. We're just going to do root password, DB name, add that. We're going to do MySQL, or let's do Laravel. I think that's the default for Laravel. We're going to grab the DB username, paste that in here. Let's just do MySQL user. Let's go to add our password. Let's just do MySQL password. And then now we get to the env file, which you can see is specifically flagged as base64. Now there's some things that you can do, especially in Laravel. You can encrypt your environment variables, and which I highly recommend investing into security. It's good to address this before it becomes a problem, but just for demonstration purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to take this env. Let's get this configured. What do we call it? MySQL user and MySQL password. Save that. And we are going to do a spin base64. And we're going to do -e for encode. And then we're going to do .env. And we're going to pipe that out into a command called pbcopy, which will put it straight to my clipboard. And the reason why we do this is because we don't want to immediately echo this out in a GitHub action runner. What will happen is it will set the environment variables within the actual shell environment itself. And what we want to do is we're going to take it, put it in this base64 so that we decode it. And then we're going to just take that as a plain secure file, place that inside of the repository, or I'm sorry, in the runner itself, and then it will package that inside of our Docker image, and we're able to deploy that out. So we're going to add that in there. And then now we're ready for our first release. But before we do that, let's just take a look here. So this is my local development. So I'm just going to press Control-C on that, and that will exit out of my local development. And then here's where we actually ran our spin provision, it's called. You can see there's a bunch of changes in here as well. So that's ready for our first deployment. Now, what we can do is go over here to spin Laravel demo app. We're going to create our first release. We're going to choose a tag. Let's just do v1.0.0. Click create new tag, paste that in there, and we're going to publish this release. You can see now that we have our release published, we're now triggering the GitHub action to build our Docker image, store that with GitHub packages itself, then run the deployment on our Swarm server because it's been prepared to be a Swarm host. And this will connect over SSH and deploy the application for us. Now, while that's going and doing its thing, let's do something crazy here. I'm going to copy this Git URL. And what I'm going to do is open up a Windows machine. And we're going to load up Ubuntu through WSL, which is supported by Microsoft to run Ubuntu as a virtual machine within Windows. We're going to change into my development directory, and I'm just going to do a git clone and paste that URL in. And that's basically going to bring down the shell of our application. So what I need to do in order to prepare for this, let's copy that env.example over, and let's put that in as our actual env. And I already have spin installed on here, but you could do like, once you get the composer packages down, you could do a bash vendor bin spin. But let's just do spin php composer install. And what this is going to do is it's going to use the same exact version of PHP that we have defined for our application, and it will pull this down onto this Windows machine. And you can see that we have traffic, MariaDB, Mailpit, Node. Everybody is on the exact same page. So all versions are stored within our repository, which makes it super powerful to not only work together with other people, but you can finally troubleshoot a 100% replication of what's in production on your local development environment. And so it's running the initial build here. Now it's doing the actual composer package install. And once we have this, we're now ready for, let's do a spin run PHP, the service. And within that Docker Compose service, we're going to run the command PHP, and we're going to run artisan key generate, and that will run the artisan command to generate our application key for us. That's good. And then now, once we have that, we should be able to run a spin up. And just like on my Mac, it will bring everything up and online for us. And we should be able to swing over to Chrome and go to laravel.dev.test. And you can see that I have this running locally on my Windows machine, running the exact same configurations as my Mac. So looking over here, let's just make sure that our GitHub actions ran. So we have the publish and we have the deployment. So that means that we should be able to do laravel.ssudemo.com, and that will bring up our Laravel application running, and it's running with a trusted SSL certificate through Let's Encrypt, which is provided by Traffic itself. So that's way cool that we have that all running. Now let me just show you what it looks like for the terminal side of things. If I were to SSH into the server, we can do SSH, what do we call it? My server, ssudemo.com. And right away, you can see I'm being prompted to change my password up here at the top. So that's cool. So we're going to put in our current password, and we're going to change that over. And now if I reconnect back into that server, now you can see that I can clear this out, do a sudo docker service ls. It will ask me for my password. I don't think I typed that, but that's okay. That's part of the security. We're going to do that. And here we go. So we have MariaDB running. We have our version 1.0 running from our Spin Laravel demo app. We have a Docker SSH, which is going to help tunnel into the MariaDB. I'll do future videos on that. And then here's our reverse proxy traffic, which is doing the Let's Encrypt and proxying over to this demo application. So hopefully you find the value in Spin. I'm working on getting all the documentation done and completed and wrapped up. I'm excited to get this beta out the door. If you're interested in following along, feel free to follow me at JD Rogers on Twitter or GitHub. You can also head on over to serversideup.net/subscribe, and we will keep you in touch on our email list. We're extremely grateful for all the support and friendship that we've developed through this project. And we're just getting started because, like I said, this is framework agnostic. We're starting with Laravel, but we intend to support other frameworks as well. If you have any questions, I'd love to chat. Thanks.